The S&P hit all-time highs today. Dow Jones nearing all-time highs. So what should we expect to see for the remainder of this week? It's Monday, October 28, 2019. I believe the stock market continues to go up this week. I believe that we will see all-time highs on the Dow Jones. And the reason being is the Fed is not going to let it lose. The Fed is buying stocks. The Fed is injecting billions of dollars into the banking system. The Fed is buying treasuries. The Fed will lower rates this week by 25 basis points. The Fed is rigging the debt market. The Fed is ensuring the stock market will not lose. So it goes up this week, in my humble opinion. Even though we have major debt and deficits, and we will go over some other news that is very concerning, but it has no effect on the stock market because the stock market doesn't care about the economy or the reality of what's really happening. The stock market cares about liquidity and that it is going to get juiced by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is ensuring and telling the stock market it cannot lose. It will go up this week. The economy continues to deteriorate, yet the stock market doesn't care. Here's reality, here are the facts about what's really happening, yet the stock market goes up. U.S. growth is slowing, that is a fact. China trade talks have basically gone nowhere and are going nowhere. Consumer spending is starting to slow down. Manufacturing and farmers are struggling. Manufacturing now is in a full-blown recession. The farmers in the Midwest, and we will be seeing food shortages because of this. The farmers in the Midwest going through the terrible flooding, now going through that blizzard last week. The consumer will be paying more at the grocery store. You are going to see a shortage of food this year. And the struggle in the heartland, in the Midwest, continues. Businesses are hiring less people. They are slowing down with hiring. GDP is forecasted to be about 1.4%. That's down from the 2% we had in spring. Friday, we will get job numbers for October. Most economists predict that the U.S. generated less than 100,000 jobs in the month of October. This will be the fewest jobs in 7 years. Yet, let me remind you, markets are up. Not only up, we saw all-time highs on the S&P today, and I believe we will see all-time highs on the Dow Jones this week. The AP today survey, U.S. businesses hiring hits 7-year low as sales slow. Make sure you're doing your homework. And on top of that, fewer employees are getting a raise in their pay. Businesses are reporting slower growth of sales and profits, and they are expecting the economy's growth to slow in this upcoming year. Companies are also cutting back on their investments in machinery, computers, and other equipment. And these are just more indications of what is coming, and I know everybody's going to be clapping and jumping up and down with the stock market doing what it's doing, but it's all an illusion, and there's going to be a massive price to pay because of this. So, if you're making money in the stock market right now, it is in your best interest to be taking that fiat currency while it's buying something and buying hard tangible assets like gold and silver. Article here, the super rich elite have more money than they know what to do with. This was on Drudge Report today. The top 1% households own $730 in capital for every dollar owned by an average household. So if you're an average household, just think about how much money the 1% have. The average family in the 90 to 99th percentile own 87 times as much. The average family in the 50 to 90 percentile owns 13.4 times as much. For every dollar of capital owned by the typical family in the poor half, that's half the country, a family in the top 1% has $730 for every one of your dollars. Really, this wealth inequality continues to spread even wider. A society that allows a few to capture most of the wealth is neither fair nor efficient. The money is not trickling down It's not being invested in the future economy. These people, they're not investing it in the economy. They're investing it in their lifestyles, in $100 million homes, and $300 and $400 million boats, and $100 million jets. The top 1% of households, that's about 1.2 million families, had an aggregate net worth of $35 trillion as of the end of June. That's 32% of the total. And unfortunately, they're not leaving any meat on the bones for the typical American. We're seeing pure greed taking place at the very top. The top 10% had $74 trillion. That's 69% of all wealth here in the U.S. The poorest half, that's about 60 million households, own 2% of the national wealth, and that's around $2 trillion. And that's less than it was just a few years ago. So the majority of people in America are becoming more poor, while the top percent continue to get wealthier and wealthier, with less money trickling down to you and I, less money trickling into the economy. Again, they're not leaving any meat on the bones for the rest of us. This week, we will continue to see the propaganda promoted through the media on how great the economy's doing, how strong and healthy the consumer is, how they can't wait to go spend all their money for Christmas, how we're seeing the stock market hitting all-time highs. It's just endless. And you and I will be talking to people this week that just believe everything is great because they turned on the TV, saw that the stock market was up and that it's at all-time highs. Let me remind you, 44% of consumers are not meeting their expenses. Just think, that's nearly 45 out of 100 people not able to pay their bills. Discover Financial Services, JP Morgan, and American Express are all increasing money for loan losses. What does this tell you? So again, people are just so in the dark about reality and what's going on. They have no understanding how rigged and manipulated these markets are, and how the Fed is going to do everything, include throw the kitchen sink, to make sure that this economy stays up as long as they can keep it propped up. They're going to keep this market. People go, when's it going to fall? It's going to fall when it falls. Nobody knows when this thing is going to come tumbling down. But at some point, it is going to, without a doubt. It will keep going. These markets and the stock market will keep going. This economy will keep going until it no longer can keep going. Zero hedge today. Economist Robert Shiller says there are bubbles everywhere. There is no place to go. You just have to ride it out. I couldn't disagree with that more. There's a few places you can go instead of just taking your chances and riding it out. You've got gold, silver, and US dollars. Now, I'm not a huge proponent of US dollars because it's just paper, it's fiat currency, but it has a place. I truly believe you shouldn't be putting all your cash in banks right now. I believe banks are a very dangerous place to be as we're watching this liquidity crisis take place, as the Fed is having to basically jump in and throw liquidity into these banks because they are running out of cash. So we're watching quantitative easing taking place right now, and that should tell you that your bank is not a safe place to be putting cash. Again, I don't believe that fiat currencies are going to last forever. I believe that the two things that will last forever are gold and silver. These have been around 5,000 years. They will be around another 5,000 years. Your dollars won't, but they do have a place. I do believe that the US dollar will be one of the last fiat currencies to go down. If we do have major problems arising here and you can't get to your banks, the US dollar is going to be usable for some amount of time. How long that is? It could be 2 months, it could be 2 years, it could be 2 days. Nobody really knows. But I can tell you this will be usable forever. Make sure you have gold, make sure you have silver, and make sure you have some dollars too. I have a link down below, SD Bullion. That's who I've been dealing with primarily now. SD Bullion, link down below if you need gold, silver. Prices have been very, very competitive, and service has been great. So hit my link down below if you need gold or silver. That's SD Bullion, link down below. I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Have an incredible week. Again, these are very exciting times, but many people are going to get sucked in with the excitement. They're going to get drunk on the excitement, and they're going to get very complacent, thinking that everything is going to be okay. everything we're watching here, watching what is happening this week, watching the Fed cutting rates again, watching the Fed jumping in and throwing liquidity, throwing cash into these banks, manipulating the stock market, is a warning to every one of you of what is really happening. This should be telling you that you should be buying hard tangible assets right now, that you should be very, very conservative with what you're doing. If you're in these markets and you're making money, the smartest thing for you to do right now is to be buying hard tangible assets, gold and silver, the two most undervalued assets on the planet right now, and you should be converting that fiat currency into metals. Nobody knows when this thing's going to hit, but they are expanding these bubbles beyond outer space at this point. And everything we're watching just solidifies why we must keep doing what we're doing, preparing for the biggest economic collapse the world has seen. They would not be doing this if these markets and this economy was not in maximum danger. They are doing everything they can now to stop the biggest, greatest depression on planet Earth. Make sure you're preparing. God bless every one of you. Make sure you're praying for this country, and make sure you're walking close to God, because God is the number one asset, and you're going to need him when this collapse hits. Nothing is going to stop what is coming. They're putting off the biggest depression the world has seen. Every day you have, take as an opportunity and keep preparing. Make sure you have as much of this as you can get.